The sheriff
Remember
tried to
Mercy,
hang a
William?
Lakota warrior until his
Please,
widow
I beg
claimed
you.
him as her husband. The town gathered at noon. Heat pressed the boards. Dust hung like judgment. The sheriff checked the knot. The Lakota warrior stood calm, hands tied, face steady, eyes on the sky. A wagon wheel clicked. Someone coughed twice. The preacher held his book. Miners lined the fence rails. Boys climbed the trough. Someone whispered slurs. The drummer from the fort stared. The bell did not ring. The sheriff breathed once. Duty weighed like iron. He looked at the faces. He looked at the rope. He looked at the man. "Name?" he asked quietly. The warrior said nothing. He would not plead. He would not beg. His cheek showed bruises. His hair held dust. His chest rose slow. A hawk circled high. The sheriff kept reading. "Horse theft and murder." The words felt heavy. The crowd leaned forward. The drifter spat once. Wind rattled the signs. The saloon door flapped. A lantern glass clicked. The sheriff's jaw tightened. He wanted truth. Truth wasn't here. Only noise, heat, and eyes. The deputy held the horse. A boy started crying. His mother hushed him. The preacher tried prayer. The words fell flat. The sheriff raised his hand. Time slowed to breath. He remembered the tracks. He remembered the blood. He remembered a boot print, not a moccasin. Still, the town burned. The cattleman wanted payment. The banker wanted quiet. The mayor wanted order. The fort wanted proof. The sheriff felt alone. Law is a cold road. He stepped toward the lever. The rope creaked softly. The warrior lifted his chin. Pride, not scorn. Sorrow, not rage. He spoke at last. "My name is Maddow." The sound cut dust. The crowd shifted feet. The sheriff's hand trembled. Duty or doubt? The sun hammered skin. Then wheels thundered close. A mule team skidded. A woman climbed down. Black dress, wind-torn shawl, tall as the sheriff, eyes like winter water. She carried a tin ring. She walked through the crowd. No apology, no pause. Her boots struck wood. Each step said no. The deputy faltered once. The horse stamped hard. The rope swayed slightly. The woman faced the sheriff. "Stop," she said simply. The word felt final. The crowd stopped breathing. She turned to Maddow. Her hand didn't shake. She lifted the ring. "He is my husband." The town erupted loud, laughter and curses. "Liar!" someone shouted. "Shame!" someone hissed. The preacher blinked hard. The sheriff stared, stunned. "Who are you?" he asked. She swallowed once. "I am Anna," she said, "widow of 2 rivers." Her voice held flint. "I claim him lawful." The mayor started shouting. "This is a trick." The banker waved papers. The drifter reached for whiskey. The deputy looked lost. The sheriff raised his palm. "Quiet!" he commanded. Silence fell heavy. He studied her face. Not fear, not heat. Something like vow. The tin ring gleamed. It wasn't pretty. It was unbreakable. She slid it on Maddow's thumb. His eyes finally softened. She faced the crowd. "You will not hang my husband." The wind changed direction. The hawk dipped lower. The sheriff felt the pull. Law against mercy, rope against ring. The liver waited patient. The town wanted blood. The widow wanted grace. The warrior wanted truth. The sheriff exhaled slowly. "Prove it," he said, "before this rope learns your names." No one in Dry Hollow had ever seen a woman like her walk through a mob and not flinch. Anna stood before the gallows as if she'd buried men twice that size, and maybe she had. Her voice was calm, her eyes steady. "He fought beside my husband," she said, "and when my husband fell, he took his oath. That makes him mine by blood promise." The preacher lowered his book. Even he didn't know if scripture covered that kind of vow. The sheriff studied her. Her hands were calloused, the kind that knew both soil and loss. The ring was cut from a coffee tin, but she wore it like it was gold. The crowd muttered. Half wanted proof, half wanted spectacle. Maddow kept silent, his gaze locked on hers. He looked neither saved nor broken, just anchored to her words like a man given one last shoreline. The sheriff dismounted and stepped closer. "Widow," he said low, "you speak dangerous words." "Only the true kind," she answered. "You can hang me too if lies are your proof." Something in that tone, unafraid, unashamed, cut through the dust and noise. The deputy shifted uneasily, waiting for orders. "Untie him," the sheriff said finally. Gasps followed. The banker protested. He killed a man. The sheriff's stare silenced him. He's claimed, he said. Until I see a reason stronger than a widow's vow, this rope stays clean. The warrior's wrists were freed. Rope fell like judgment undone. Maddo rubbed the marks, but his eyes never left Anna's. When she reached for him, it wasn't romance, it was recognition, a shared exile, finding shape. You shouldn't have come, he murmured. I never stopped walking since they took you, she said. The sheriff turned away, pretending to inspect the lever, but what he really felt was the wind changing. It carried something old, the sound of fairness he'd forgotten. Behind them, the crowd dissolved into whispers, uncertain which story to believe. A vulture overhead drifted west. The preacher closed his book and sighed. If lies can save a soul, he muttered, then maybe truth's been doing it wrong. The sheriff untied his badge just long enough to wipe the dust off and stared at the faint shine beneath. Mercy, he thought, is heavier than iron. And as Anna led Maddo down from the gallows, the town of Dry Hollow held its breath, because for the first time, law had blinked first. They reached the widow's cabin by dusk, following the river's curve where cottonwoods bent low and the water spoke like an old friend. The house leaned a little, patched with care, smoke rising thin from the chimney. Inside, the air carried the smell of ash and bread, the kind that softens walls. Maddo stepped over the threshold as if entering another world, one where no one shouted orders or tightened ropes. Anna lit a lantern, its glow catching the ring on his thumb. It's not gold, she said quietly, but it's promise. He looked at her hands. They trembled only when the light found the scars along her wrists. They tried to burn me out, she said simply. Said a woman living alone kept ghosts. He answered in his language, slow and careful. Maybe ghosts keep you. The words settled between them like coals under ash. Outside, crickets started their evening hymn. Inside, silence grew tender. She poured him water. He refused, then took it anyway. The sheriff's horse had followed part way, hoofprints half visible in the dust beyond the gate. Anna noticed, but said nothing. Maddo sat near the fire. Why save me? He asked. Because I couldn't save my husband, she said, eyes on the flame. And because when they hanged him, you buried him upright, not face down like they ordered. He blinked, surprised she knew. I saw you from the trees, she added. You didn't know anyone was watching. He bowed his head slightly. Then you know I do not run. Good, she said, setting a loaf on the table. Because if they come tonight, we fight. Wind brushed the shutters, gentle at first, then heavier, as if the prairie itself was listening. He tasted the bread. It was coarse, honest, full of earth and mercy. She poured him black coffee, her hand steady now. You have nowhere else to go, she said. Then neither do you, he replied. The lantern flickered once, throwing their shadows together on the wall, a lawman's fugitives, framed in warmth they didn't yet believe in. And far off down the river, thunder rolled without rain, a reminder that peace in the West was never more than a borrowed hour. Sheriff Cole sat alone in his office long after the sun had fallen, the rope from the hanging still coiled on his desk like a sleeping snake. The town had gone quiet, except for the wind tapping against the window. The rhythmic tick of the clock reminded him that law didn't sleep, even when conscience did. He poured coffee that tasted like regret and stared at the badge-catching lamplight. He'd sworn to protect order, but he couldn't stop seeing the widow's face, how she'd looked at the warrior not like a savior, but like an equal. He remembered her voice when she said, "You can hang me too." That sound had cracked something old inside him. He'd been sheriff 10 years and seen men lie for gold, blood, or pride, but never for love that expected nothing back. He opened the record book and flipped to Maddo's page. Accused, murder of rancher Eli Ward. He traced the words, noticing what wasn't there. No witness, no trail, no truth, just a name written fast by a deputy who'd already left town. Cole leaned back, rubbing his temples. God help me, he whispered. Maybe we hanged the wrong man once, and I just tried to do it again. The floorboards creaked. He half expected the widow to appear, demanding mercy again, but it was only the deputy. Sheriff, the young man said nervously, you really think she's telling the truth? Cole looked up slowly. Doesn't matter what I think. It matters what's right. The deputy frowned. That ain't the same thing out here. Cole sighed, folding the rope into a drawer. That's what scares me. He took his hat and walked outside into the cool dark. The sky above Dry Hollow shimmered with stars that didn't care who the law was. He found himself riding toward the river before realizing where he meant to go. Every hoofbeat sounded like a question. By the time he saw the faint orange glow of her lantern through the trees, his pulse had already chosen mercy over duty. He stopped at the fence line, watching their silhouettes move inside. The widow setting bread, the warrior mending something broken. It looked like peace, fragile but alive. He turned his horse back toward town, but his heart stayed by the river, and for the first time in years the sheriff prayed that the truth would wait long enough for him to find it. Morning came cold and clean, the kind of light that makes everything look like it could start over. Anna was hanging laundry by the river when she heard the distant rhythm of hooves, 3, maybe 4 horses, riding hard. Mato stepped from the doorway, already holding her husband's old rifle. His eyes didn't ask. They knew. Dust rose beyond the ridge, the kind that carries anger before it arrives. "Sheriff?" she whispered. He shook his head. "No law rides like that." The sound grew louder, metal clinking, curses between wind gusts. She took a breath and lifted the shotgun from the porch. "I won't lose another home," she said. He nodded once. They waited. The riders appeared through the cottonwoods, Ward's brothers and 2 ranch hands, their faces tight with vengeance, whiskey still on their breath. The lead man spat into the dirt. "You think a widow's word cleans blood?" he sneered. Anna didn't lower her aim. "You come for justice or just another corpse?" "We come for what's owed," he said. "That red dog killed Eli, and now he hides under your skirt." Mato stepped forward, calm as Morningstone. "I buried your brother. I did not kill him." "Liar!" The man drew his pistol. Anna fired once, warning shot. Bark exploded near his boot. The horses reared, shouting filled the air. For a moment, the river itself seemed to hold its breath. "Next shot ain't a warning," Anna said evenly. The man hesitated. Her calm unnerved him more than fury could. But hate is stubborn. He gestured to his men. "Burn her place, smoke them out." They dismounted, striking matches, but Mato moved first. One blur of motion, knocking a man to the ground, gun spinning into the mud. Anna fired again, the blast echoing through the trees, the smell of gunpowder mixed with river mist. The men stumbled back, realizing too late this wasn't some helpless widow's land. One rider fell, clutching his shoulder. Another fled, swearing vengeance. The leader glared, hatred shaking his jaw. "This ain't over," he spat, retreating toward his horse. "Next time we bring fire." When the dust settled, Anna dropped the shotgun and sank to her knees. Mato knelt beside her. "You fight like your husband," he said softly. "No," she answered, breathless. "I fight because he's gone." The rifle barrel smoked faintly between them. Beyond the trees, the sheriff's horse appeared on the trail, too late to stop the fight, but right on time to see which side he belonged to. By nightfall, the smoke from the gunfire had thinned, and only the smell of burned powder lingered over the river. Anna moved slowly through the cabin, closing shutters and setting bread to rise again, as if peace could be baked back into the air. Mato cleaned the rifles without a word, the rhythm steady, patient. The sheriff's horse waited outside the gate, reins hanging loose, while Cole himself stood at the porch rail, hat in his hands. "You fought them off," he said quietly. "They left bleeding," Anna replied. "If you came to arrest us, wait till the bread cools." Her voice held no venom, only exhaustion. He nodded once, stepping inside. The warmth from the fire met the cold of his conscience like 2 storms colliding. "No one died," Mato said without looking up. "That counts for mercy." Cole sat at the table, watching Anna knead the dough, her hands pressed into it like someone shaping order from chaos. "You always this calm after a gunfight?" he asked. "Only when I win," she answered, glancing at him. The flicker of humor startled him more than the shooting had. The lantern threw a soft gold across the walls, catching the tin ring on Mato's thumb again. The sheriff's eyes lingered on it. "You said he was your husband," he murmured. "Is that true?" She paused, flour clinging to her skin. "Truth changes shape out here, Sheriff. But what I said saved a man's life. That's true enough." Maddo looked up then, his gaze steady. Words save more than bullets. Cole leaned back, sighing. Town's turning meaner by the day. They'll call this lawless. Anna set the loaf aside to rest. Then let them call it mercy. I'm done living by other people's anger. Silence followed, comfortable this time, filled with the small sounds of a life trying to start again. The sheriff took off his gloves, reached for a piece of cooling bread, and broke it in half. You'll need supplies, he said finally. I'll see the storekeeper tomorrow. And when the riders return? She asked. Then I'll be here, he answered. For a moment, none of them spoke. The river whispered through the cracks in the window, and the fire sighed low. Outside, the stars looked close enough to touch. Anna smiled faintly. Maybe ghosts do keep us, she said, and Maddo nodded once. The sheriff chewed the bread slowly, feeling it settle heavy and honest. For the first time in years, he didn't taste guilt in every bite, only salt, earth, and something like grace. The next morning broke pale and brittle, the kind of dawn that makes even mercy feel like a wound. Sheriff Cole rode out before the sun cleared the ridge, his badge tucked deep in his pocket as though it burned. The town's church bell rang early, sharp against the empty street, and the preacher's voice carried on the wind. No man can serve two masters. Cole dismounted outside the chapel, but didn't go in. He stood in the dust, hat low, watching light bleed through the cracked window. You mean law and mercy, he muttered, answering the sermon no one heard. His mind drifted to the widow's kitchen, to the warmth of bread and the quiet of her eyes when she said she was done living by other people's anger. He envied that kind of peace, the kind that didn't ask permission. Inside, the preacher prayed for souls. Outside, the sheriff prayed for direction. He knelt beside his horse, the dust clinging to his knees. Lord, he whispered, I don't know which sin's heavier, the hangings I carried out or the mercy I just gave away. The horse shifted, restless, as though the prayer itself unsettled the air. If justice is clean, he went on, why does it stain so easy? He looked toward the river, faint smoke rising where the widow's cabin stood. If she's lying, I'll lose the town. If she's telling truth, I'll lose myself. His hands trembled. Either way, someone's going to burn. He rose slowly, dusting off his knees. The preacher's words faded. The world sounded too quiet. Then from behind, boots scraped the boards. The deputy stepped out of the shade, holding a letter sealed with red wax. Came from Fort Hamilton, he said. Says the Lakota Warriors wanted for another killing. An officer gone missing last winter. Cole took it, staring at the seal like it might bite. You read it? No, sir, didn't want to. The sheriff tore it open. The letter was brief. Names, dates, an accusation cold as iron. He folded it twice, his jaw tightening. Burn it, he said. The deputy hesitated. That's an order? No, Cole said softly. That's a prayer. The younger man obeyed, striking a match. The flame caught the edge and curled the paper into nothing. Cole watched it vanish. I'll go see them tonight, he murmured. If sin's going to find me, let it ride through the dark. He mounted up and turned toward the river, the sky bleeding gold behind him. Every hoofbeat sounded like a confession he hadn't learned how to make. By the time the sheriff reached the river that night, the air already smelled of smoke. Orange light flickered beyond the ridge, low and hungry. He spurred his horse faster, cresting the hill just as flames licked at Anna's fence line. Ward's brothers were back, torches in hand, their rage louder than the wind. Maddo stood in the yard with the rifle, shoulders squared, the widow beside him holding a bucket that looked small against the inferno, spreading along the grass. Back inside, Cole shouted, firing a warning shot into the air. The riders spun, startled to see the lawman gallop straight through the fire. You switch sides now, Sheriff, one of them yelled. Cole's horse reared, sparks raining down. No sides tonight, just men too stupid to quit. Gunfire cracked, wild and blind. Maddo dropped to one knee, returning shots measured and steady. Anna moved between them both, throwing water on the porch rail, her shawl catching ember light. Cole dismounted, dragging a burning plank aside, his coat singed at the edges. The heat clawed his throat, smoke biting every breath. You'll die for a savage, the lead rider screamed, aiming again. Cole fired first. The man fell hard, torch tumbling into the mud. The others froze. Even the fire seemed to pause. "Go home," Cole said, voice raw. "Tell your hate it's outnumbered." They backed off, cursing, their horses scattering into the trees. The sheriff turned, half the cabin still burning. Anna ran for the well, pulling the rope until her hands bled. Maddo joined her, tossing buckets till the flames hissed and retreated. When the last spark died, the yard smelled of wet wood and iron. Cole leaned on his rifle, coughing smoke. "You all right?" he asked. Anna nodded weakly. "Just another night in the west." Maddo looked at the bodies, the fire's ruin, the sheriff's blistered hands. "You chose mercy again," he said. "Maybe it's all I've got left," Cole replied. He looked at Anna then, eyes shining like glass. "You lied to save him, didn't you?" She hesitated, then said, "Yes." Maddo met her gaze, not angry, only grateful. "A lie that saves a life," Cole murmured, "might be closer to truth than any law I've sworn." The fire's glow faded into smoke-blue twilight. Somewhere in that silence, the sheriff felt something break and heal at the same time. He picked up the fallen torch and threw it into the river. The flame hissed out in one final breath, and the darkness that followed felt almost holy. Dawn came slow over the river, soft gold turning the ashes to silver. The cabin still stood, scarred but alive, its roof smoking faintly where the fire had tried and failed to win. Anna slept by the hearth wrapped in a blanket, her face lit by a single beam of light. Maddo sat outside, sharpening a knife he didn't need, listening to the wind move through the reeds. Sheriff Cole stood by the gate, hat in hand, the letter from Fort Hamilton burning a hole in his pocket. He unfolded it once more, even though he'd already memorized every cruel word. Wanted for the death of Lieutenant Ward, the same Ward whose brothers had just tried to burn this place down. He looked at Maddo's profile against the morning sky, still, patient, carrying the kind of strength that didn't beg to be seen. "It's his brother they claim you killed," Cole said quietly. Maddo turned, eyes calm. "Then truth has no mouth left," he answered. "He was already dying when I found him in the snow. I closed his eyes, that's all." Cole held the paper over the dying fire. The edges curled, blackening to smoke. "I believe you," he said. Anna stirred, sitting up. "What was that?" "A lie I chose to bury," he replied. She stood, barefoot, stepping into the light. Then the world just got a little kinder. Maddo rose too, watching the paper vanish into ash. "You'll lose your badge for this," he said. Cole smiled faintly. "Maybe I should have lost it years ago." The three stood in silence as the wind carried the last ember downstream. Then Anna went to the cupboard and brought out a folded letter, worn at the edges. "My husband wrote this before he died," she said softly. "He asked me to give it to someone who reminded me of him. Today that's you." She handed it to the sheriff. Cole unfolded it slowly. Inside, just one line. "Mercy is the only law God signs his name under." He closed it, throat tight. "He was right," he whispered, "and maybe that's why this land won't stay cruel forever." Maddo reached for Anna's hand, and she didn't pull away. Cole put his badge on the porch rail and left it there, glinting in the light. "If anyone asks," he said, mounting up, "tell them I went where mercy still needs a lawman." He tipped his hat and rode toward the rising sun, the trail bright ahead, and behind him the cabin stood like a promise that had finally been kept. By evening the river ran clear again, washing away the black ash that had clung to its edges. Anna sat on the porch steps with her sleeves rolled up, mending the same shawl that had caught fire the night before. Maddo carved wood in silence beside her, shaping a small horse from cedar, each stroke unhurried, deliberate. The cabin smelled of smoke and bread, forgiveness baked into its walls. Beyond the gate, grass bent under the breeze, the land already trying to forget the violence that had touched it. They could hear distant hammering, townsfolk rebuilding the corral Ward's men had burned, proof that Dry Hollow had chosen work over war. Anna looked at the tin ring on Maddo's hand. "You could go north," she said softly. "They'd call you hero there." He shook his head. "Heroes don't build peace. Women like you do." She smiled faintly. Returning to her stitching. A hawk drifted low over the river, its shadow brushing the porch. "He'll come back someday," she said. "The sheriff?" Maddo nodded once. Men who trade law for mercy always do. The land needs them. She looked toward the horizon, where the sky blazed orange, then cooled into pale gold. So does the land, she whispered. The sun dipped behind the ridge, and for a long while they said nothing. The only sounds were the steady scrape of the knife, the thread pulling through cloth, and the river whispering its endless story. When darkness came, Maddo lit the lantern, the same one that had survived the fire, and placed it on the porch rail. Its light spread gentle across their faces, warm as forgiveness. Anna leaned against the doorframe, watching it flicker. "Maybe this is what peace looks like," she said. "Quiet enough to hear your own heart?" Maddo set the carving beside her, a small wooden horse standing firm on its tiny legs. "And strong enough not to run," he replied. The wind carried the last of the smoke away, leaving only the smell of rain on earth. From somewhere far off came the faint sound of hooves fading east. Sheriff Cole riding into another story, another mercy waiting to be found. Anna closed her eyes, the light painting her face in gold. Maddo watched the horizon one last time, then blew out the lantern. The stars appeared, endless and near. That's how the West remembered them, not for what they took, but for what they gave back. That's how the West remembered them, not for what they took, but for what they gave back. Do you think mercy can ever weigh more than the law? If this story touched you, like, share, and subscribe to Redemption West for more tales of faith, fire, and forgiveness across the old frontier.